Hi, my name is Leah, and I would briefly like to share with you my story. I came from a pretty stable and privileged home. I'm one of 6 kids and overall had a really good childhood. Growing up, however, I had question marks over my gender and I very much behaved and dressed like a boy, causing people to often mistake me as a boy. And my interests were certainly drawn towards that sort of stereotypical boy interest, such as sports and outdoor activities, building and fixing things, etc. And to be honest, they're still my interest today. But like many others who can experience this sort of figuring out of who they are during their childhood development, my gender confusion did in fact dissipate over time. And I began to not only accept but also embrace my womanhood as I still do today. While my gender confusion dissipated, I began to realise that my same-sex attraction did not dissipate, and in fact my same-sex attraction only grew stronger. This made me become quite withdrawn and reserved as a teenager as I worked through the confusion of why I was feeling this way. And after trying to resist these feelings for many years, it was through my early 20s that I entered into lesbian relationships. And for a time this was fulfilling, but after a while I became pretty unhappy. I began to experience some mental health struggles with extreme anxiety and depression, loneliness, a whole range of issues. And I also grew tired of the unhealthy relationships that were surrounding me. I disliked the obsessive nature that characterised some relationships, as well as the promiscuity that was present either in relationships I was involved in or the relationships that I witnessed. Now, notably, that this doesn't represent all lesbian relationships, but this was certainly my experience. And so for these reasons, as well as other reasons, I decided to seek help not only to deal with my mental health issues, but also receive support to leave the lesbian life. So I sought counsel from friends and psychologists, ministries, support networks, and also people who had walked very similar journeys to me. And none of these supports were ever harmful or coercive or ineffective. In fact, all these avenues were very effective, supportive, and completely driven by my desire to actively be involved in such counsel. Now note that under many legislations around the world, particularly the legislation just passed in Victoria, Australia, every positive step of help that I received along my journey would now become illegal and penalised with fines and even jail time. Along my journey, I encountered 2 extremely contrasting experiences from 2 different professionals. And the first one was with a GP who responded to me with the affirmative model. He told me that I should accept who I am and live as a lesbian. And considering that I was there to receive help to pursue a life away from lesbianism, this response made me feel rather unhelped, despondent, and actually really hopeless. According to this GP, my pursuit to explore this type of help was simply not valued, and apparently change was not possible. I was left desperately wondering, maybe my life would be like this forever. Again, note that under such legislation that we are seeing around the world, this affirmative treatment would be the only type of counsel that is not only available but also legal. Contrast this experience with a psychologist who took great care and consideration of my pursuit. He listened and asked questions and helped me unravel my past hurts and false beliefs about myself and also others. He then provided me with a question about what life would look like on this other side of change. And I couldn't answer him at first because I simply had never contemplated my life without this all-consuming same-sex attraction. However, over the following weeks, hope began to grow. I began to imagine what my life could be like without this issue that had plagued me for so long. And before long, I had an indescribable and unquenchable reality of a changed life. My situation went from being desperately hopeless to living an unexplainable freedom. This counselling from the psychologist was simple. It did not contain any biased or coercive language, yet it was effective. Today, just over 10 years since leaving this lesbian identity behind, I am living proof that change is possible, that my life today is just full of joy and purpose and adventure, and I'm very happily married to my husband of 7 years, and we share our own biological children together. I simply couldn't be happier. This change, however, is not just evident in my sexual orientation, but I now no longer have the mental health issues that I explained before. To name a few, I am free from this grip of anxiety and depression, self-doubt and social isolation, as well as suicidal tendencies. I am so grateful that I had the access and the freedom to be able to pursue this life that I am now living. My aim in sharing this, however, is not to deny or disregard those who are content to live as LGBT. In fact, I deeply care for people within the LGBTQIA+ community, and I still have many friends in this community. However, my concerns are for people like me who, for various reasons, wish to not live as LGBT and pursue help and counsel in order to achieve this. You see, we all have a right to choice, and I think it's only fair that the rights of one community does not compromise or completely eradicate the rights of another. Thank you for listening.